Hey guys, this is God of Politics. Welcome back to a brand new video, but before we get started with this video, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also, join the Discord that is linked down in the description and check out the website, which is also linked down in the description. I do update that every single day, but in today's video, we'll be doing my updated U.S. House of Representatives prediction for the November election, which is coming up very close to now. I'll be probably doing two more predictions after this, but there are a lot of races to get through, so I'll get right into it. Currently, the Democrats have 232 seats, the Republicans have 197. The Libertarians have won with Justin Amash, and there are 5 vacancies. In the last election, Republicans were elected with 200 seats. Democrats were elected with 235 seats. We'll see if Democrats can actually gain in the House, because that's something that we've been seeing recently. So I'll just be going state by state, seeing how I think these races are going to go. Starting with Alabama, nothing competitive there. In Alaska, we do have the one main seat here, which I am probably just going to lean Republican, because, you know, it's seeming with Don Young that he's kind of having like negative incumbency because he's been there for so long. And his candidate opposing him for the Democratic side is pretty good and does well in fundraising, but I do still think that he is going to win. Arizona, we have a number of seats as well. I probably agree with all these predictions, and I would put the 6th district at lean Republican. You have David Schweikart here, who is a pretty low-name Republican in a district that's trending very far towards the Democrats. But I do expect him to win, even though he had like a scandal or something. It's not going to be too difficult for him to be able to win, because, you know, Trump did win his district by 10 percentage points in 2016, and he won by 10 percentage points in 2018, but it could be a little bit closer. Arkansas's 2nd district here has actually been put at lean Republican. I have it around likely Republican, but we did have some polls showing it close, and the fundraising numbers are good, and it has trended a little bit towards the Democrats, but I think Arkansas might be one of the few states that actually trends towards the Republicans in this election, so we will see how that turns out, but I have that as likely Republican. Now, California, we have a lot of seats here. First, with the 10th congressional district, I do think this would probably be safe Democrat. If we go to the next one, which is TJ Cox, I've now moved this to tilt Democrat. We had a lot of polls, even internals, showing that the Republican candidate is up by quite a big margin. The fundraising is actually tied. TJ Cox is running against the person who used to have the district in Clinton. You know, sure, she won it by 16 points, but TJ Cox just isn't that great of a candidate, but I do think he will be able to scrape out a win. Mike Garcia, I do have this as tilt Republican, because, you know, he is doing well in fundraising. He's doing well in the polls. Christy Smith is not that great of a candidate. Sure, he's in suburban California, that in a district that will probably trend even more towards the Democrats, but I do expect him to win by a tilt margin. California's 48th congressional district, I do think, is likely a Democrat. You know, it's Orange County, as you can see way down here. It's trending towards the Democrats a lot, so I do think it will continue trending towards the Democrats and go by a likely margin. Colorado's the next one. We don't have really many competitive races here. We do have the 3rd district, which I have as likely Republican. This is with Lauren Boebert, who beat Scott Tipton. She's one of those QAnon people who doesn't really have much fundraising, but it did, you know, Trump did win it by 12 percentage points, so I do still have it at likely, but if we get fundraising numbers, I think it may be a little bit closer than that. The next state is the state of Connecticut, which has pretty much all safe congressional districts there. Delaware, you only have the one congressional district, which is safe. Florida, you have a couple of congressional districts that in theory could be close. We only have a couple competitive ones. I do have Florida's 15th at likely Republican. The incumbent Ross Spano was defeated. Vern Buchanan, I think he probably wins by a safe margin. Same thing with Brian Mast. I think they probably both win by safe to likely margins. Maybe I'll actually leave both of these at likely. Debbie McCarcel-Powell, I do think wins by a lean margin. You know, she's not that great of a candidate. The fundraising, the polls haven't been too good, but I do think, again, because of the fact that Hillary Clinton won it so much, it will be able to pull her over the line. Same thing with Donna Shalala. I'll probably leave that at likely, but that could easily go by a safe margin as well. Haven't put too much thought into those kinds of seats. Georgia, we have 2 competitive races. We have the 6th and the 7th. The 6th I do think is lean, and the 7th I also do think is lean. Rob Woodall is retiring, and you have an open seat between Carolyn Bordeaux and Rich McCormick. Carolyn Bordeaux is doing well in fundraising. She's in a trending area. She's done well in some of the few polls that we've had. Lucy McBeth, a similar story, but a less Republican district and a Democratic incumbent, so I do expect them to win both quite easily, but they probably will merge the 6th and 7th districts after redistricting, which will get rid of one of them. Hawaii, that's 2 safe districts for the Democrats. Idaho is 2 safe districts for the Republicans. Illinois, we have a couple of competitive districts. We first have the 6th, which is up there, which I think is now safe Democrat. It's not even included in competitive races. Rodney Davis, I do think, wins by a likely margin. I don't think he's going to have too much trouble. Actually, I may leave it at a lean, but it could be by a likely margin as well. The polls have not been good for the Democratic candidate there. Lauren Underwood and Sherry Bustos, I also think both win by likely margins. Sherry Bustos won by a lot. Actually, I'll put this at safe because, she won by a lot in 2018, and sure, Trump won the district by 0.6 percentage point, but she's a good candidate with good fundraising. Same thing with Lauren Underwood. I do think she'll be able to win by a likely margin as well. That is suburban Chicago, which is trending very, very blue. Indiana, there is one competitive one, which is the 5th, which I do have as a lean Republican. We've seen some polls recently. I believe it was like a Democratic internal showing the Democrat up 5, the Republican internal showing the Republican up 5. So, in theory, that would be a toss-up, but, the fundraising is not, it's good for Democrats, but, they could improve on it. And so, at least for now, just to do the fundamentals of this district, I will be putting it at lean Republican. With Iowa, I will be putting all 3 of these seats at lean Democrat. I'm not sure why they're all rated as toss-ups. We had polls there recently showing the Democrats were up by quite a bit. And these districts will, in my opinion, probably all go to Joe Biden. And I also do think that, they're good candidates. They've done well in the polls. They've got good fundraising. And again, Joe Biden could easily win all 3 of these districts here, and that it's going to take more than that for Trump. He's going to have to win the districts by probably just as much as he did in 2016 to flip those districts. Kansas, we don't really have any competitive districts. We have the 3rd and the 2nd, which aren't really competitive. I'll just leave those ratings there. Kentucky, maybe the 6th could be a little bit competitive, but I'll leave it at likely at a likely margin. That's not really going to matter that much. Louisiana, there's no competitive races. You have the 1 Democrat seat in New Orleans. Maine, you do have the 1st and the 2nd. Jared Golden's been doing very well in the polls. I've moved it from tilt Democrat to likely Democrat in a matter of a couple weeks. I could almost move it to safe Democrat at this point. But I will leave it a likely Democrat. Jared Golden's a very good candidate. If you want to talk about impeachment, he voted against impeachment. So that is quite, he's quite a good candidate. I do expect him to win easily. Maryland, nothing competitive there. That's a gerrymander. Massachusetts, also nothing competitive. Michigan, nothing really competitive, to be honest. I think the 3rd is probably likely. I think the 6th is probably likely as well. I think these are probably going to both be easy wins for Republicans. Michigan's 8th and Michigan's 11th, I probably think are both likely as well. Republicans did not put up good candidates here, and I do expect them to trend a little bit back towards the Democrats here, and Democrats should be able to win those easily. Minnesota, I do think there actually will be a flip towards the Republicans here, and that is the 7th congressional district, which I do think by actually a lean margin will flip away from Colin Peterson. If you look in 2018, he only won by 4 percentage points against a terrible candidate for the Republicans who had no fundraising, and it was in a blue wave year, and now you've got a situation where the candidate has almost outraised Colin Peterson, and Colin Peterson is he's been there for a long time, since 1991, but it's such a heavy Trump district that it's going to be hard for him to win. Minnesota's first to have it likely. Some people have this closer, but I don't really think it's going to be too close there. I think he's going to do all right. He is a freshman Republican, but I do think he's going to still win by a likely margin. Mississippi, all safe congressional districts. Missouri is second congressional district. Some people are putting it as a toss-up. I would put this at lean to likely Republican because we've had actually the fundraising numbers for the Democrat was released today. They were very good. I believe it was almost $2 million, and the polls have been quite good. But, you look at the fundamentals of the district. It was won by Trump by 10 percentage points. I do think it's going to be hard to flip or even get that close at all. Montana, I would leave it lean Republican. You do have some of the polls here which have shown it close. You do have pretty good fundraising numbers for the Democrats, but again, it is Montana won by Trump by 20-something points, so I don't think that is going to flip either. We can see here Democrats are already at 230, Republicans are only at 190. We've still got 15 toss-up seats to go. The second district in Nebraska, I do think is lean Republican. Democrats ran Kara Eastman, who's the same candidate they ran in 2018, who's not a good candidate, not good in fundraising, not good in the polls, not good for this district, which is a suburban district trying to equal the Democrats. I do think that maybe if Kara Eastman ran in another wave year, she would win, but really Nebraska's second is trending to the Democrats, but she does not help the cause for the Democrats, and that is going to stay Republican with Don Bacon. Nevada, I do agree with all of these. Sure, they were won by Trump the third, and the fourth was won by Clinton by only 5, but I do think they're both likely margins. The Democrats have good candidates there. New Hampshire's first. I'm not sure why the second is likely. I would say that is safe. The first I would also say is likely. Chris Coppas and Ancaster are both good candidates, and Republicans did not feel good candidates. New Jersey, we've got a lot of interesting seats here. If you look in the state of New Jersey, we see that there's actually a lot of competitive seats, and the reason that is Republicans effectively made a gerrymander back in 2010 that had a lot of these seats being Republican. The third was Republican, the second was Republican, the seventh and the fifth were all Republican districts. Now, you could be looking at a situation where there's 11 Democrats, 1 Republican. I do think the second, at least for now, I've moved it from lean to tilt Republican. We had a poll here from Monmouth that showed the Democratic candidate Kennedy, I forgot her first name, but her last name is Kennedy. She was up by around 7 percentage points against Jeff Van Drew. Jeff Van Drew must not be very happy that he switched parties now, even though he thought he would lose the primary. But I do have it still Republican. I'll wait till the fundraising numbers come out to move it towards the Democrats because the Democratic candidate didn't have too much fundraising. But I do expect Jeff Van Drew to narrowly hold on, at least for now. Tom Malinowski, I'll move his seat to likely, not going to have much trouble winning there. New Mexico, we have the second congressional district here that I do believe is still Democrat. There hasn't been much talk about this. You have Yvette Harrell, who is the candidate running for the Republicans, a rematch of 2018. Chotel Torres Small won by 1.8 percentage points. She's doing well in fundraising. I believe there were some polls that showed she was actually winning as well, and I do expect her to narrowly pull off a victory. In New York, we have a couple of seats as well. I am from the state of New York, and there are actually a number of competitive seats. First, New York's first district, I do think is likely Republican. Sure, you could say it's trending towards the Democrats, but Lee Zeldin's been doing very well in the polls and the fundraising. New York second, I actually have flipping towards the Democrats. Peter King is retiring now, and you have the Democratic candidate Jackie Gordon, I believe, who is quite a good candidate in terms of the fundraising, and I do expect this district to be very close, if not actually go to Joe Biden, and I do expect him to do a lot better in the Long Island area, which is where this district is down here, as you can see where my cursor is. But I do expect him to be able to win. Max Rose, I also think, will win by a lean margin. He's got a very good strategy going against Bill de Blasio. If you don't know, the candidate he's running against, Nicole Maliotakis, ran for New York City mayor. She won Staten Island by a huge margin. Now Max Rose is coming out and saying Bill de Blasio is the worst mayor. He's doing a lot of bad things, but I've stood with Trump on a lot of things too. So he's painting this very moderate message, and I've moved it from tilt to lean Democrat because he is that good of a candidate that can win in this district. Delgado, I'll put it at lean. I'm not sure if I agree with it being likely, but I do believe it could be lean. Brindisi, I do think is tilt Republican, purely because of the fact that this is such a pro-Trump district. Maybe if we get some polls like we did in 2018, and once the new fundraising numbers come out, I could change that, but as of now, I do think it is tilt Republican. The 24th, John Katko, we had a poll with Dana Balter actually up. It was not an internal poll, but John Katko is still he's still a good candidate, so I do expect him to win. North Carolina, we don't really have anything competitive, but we do have the two effectively freebies for the Democrats. I actually think those will go by safe margins. They were both won by Clinton by safe margins there. North Dakota, it's just the one district that's safe. Ohio, not really much competitive either. I don't know why the first is labeled as a toss-up. I'd put this at lean Republican. Steve Shabat's a decent candidate. He's doing all right in the fundraising, and I do expect him to win. Oklahoma, we've got the 5th congressional district, the one district that was effectively the fluke of 2018. I do expect her to lose by a tilt margin. We had a couple polls here. I believe we had one with her down 4, which had her down like 10 in 2018. She ended up winning, and then we had just had a new poll showing her down 4 again, so I do think she's narrowly going to lose, but she's been doing all right in the fundraising, and she's an all right candidate, so I do think that she could get it a little bit close, maybe even win, but we'll wait and see about that. Oregon, not much competitive. The fourth, I would put it a safe margin, to be honest. I don't really think it's going to be too competitive. He's been around for a while. I do think in this situation, it does help him. Pennsylvania, we had this Monmouth poll recently showing Biden up by 11, which in theory would make districts like the 10th and the 1st flip. I don't think Biden's up by 11 points in Pennsylvania. I do think Pennsylvania 1 is going to stay with Brian Fitzpatrick. He's a good candidate running against a bad candidate for the Democrats. Pennsylvania 8th, I would say, is lean. Scott Perry, I do have as lean. I've moved this from likely. Trump won the district by 8.9, but Scott Perry is not that great of a candidate, and his challenger, I believe his name is Eugene DePasquale. He is quite a good candidate. He's actually been up at like 6 in his own internals, so that is good news for him. Connor Lamb's also quite a good candidate. I do expect him to be able to win quite easily there. So Democrats will be tied in terms of the delegations in terms of Pennsylvania, which could be interesting in the event of a tie. So Rhode Island obviously is going to be 2 safe districts. South Carolina, we have the 1 competitive. I don't know why the 2nd is labeled as likely. That's going to be safe. But I do believe Joe Cunningham is a tilt Democrat. Joe Cunningham's a good candidate. He's done good in fundraising. He's got a good campaign strategy. We even had Lindsey Graham praising him. It shows, Lindsey Graham thinks that Joe Cunningham is popular. That's probably what he's showing in internals. And, Nancy Mace for Republicans is an all-right candidate, but Joe Cunningham is a good candidate. He's doing very well with women voters, and I do expect him to be able to win by a tilt margin, even though Trump won the district by quite a bit. South Dakota, it's just the 1 at-large district, which is safe Republican. Tennessee, you've got 2 Democratic districts. The rest are all safe Republican. Now here we go with Texas. Texas has got a lot of very interesting seats. The reason it's got a lot of interesting seats is because this is a dummy mandate. When Texas made this map, the Texas Republicans back in 2010 or in 2011, the map would not look like this. They did not think they'd have all these competitive seats here. We have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 competitive seats out of 36. Almost a third of the races are labeled as potentially competitive. And while I don't think seats like Texas 2nd or 3rd or 6th are going to flip, I think Texas's 21st will flip. I think Texas's 22nd will flip. I think the 23rd will flip. I think the 24th will narrowly stay Republican. 21st, Chip Roy is doing bad in virtually every aspect. He's doing bad in the fundraising. The trends are not in favor of him. He's doing bad in the polls, and he is a freshman Republican. And because of that, I do think he is going to narrowly lose. Texas's 22nd, the Democrats have Sri Kulkarni here, who is the same candidate they ran in 2018. This district's trended like 25 points blue compared to what it was in 2012 to 2016, and Beto O'Rourke, I believe, actually won this district in 2018. So Sri Kulkarni does have the ability to win. I do think he is going to narrowly do it. Texas 23, we had Gina Ortiz-Jones that just raised a lot of money for the Democratic Party, and I do believe that she is going to be able to win this district, which was held by Democrats before. It's not really a trending district, but it's just a blue district to begin with, so I do believe that is going to go to the Democrats. Utah's 4th, I do believe, is tilt Republican. They had Burgess Owens, who is his challenger, Ben McAdams, his challenger, speak at the convention, and he was a pretty good candidate. He didn't have much fundraising at the time, but I do expect him to have gotten fundraising since then, and Trump won the district by 7 points, even with Evan McMullin, so I do think he's going to be able to win it again, and Ben McAdams is going to lose. Vermont, it's just the 1 at-large district. Virginia, we've got a couple competitive seats here too. The 5th congressional district, I do think, is likely Republican, not going to be too competitive. The 7th, I do think, is a lean Democrat. Abigail Spanberger, sure, she's in a Trump plus 6.5 district, but this district is trending towards the Democrats, and she is a pretty good candidate with good fundraising, so I do expect her to be able to win. Washington, as well, nothing really competitive. I do think that the 8th is probably actually a safe margin. Jamie Herrera Butler in the 3rd, I would say that's probably likely. West Virginia, you've got the 3 districts here. It's going to go down to 2 after the census, but they do have 3 right now. They're all safe Republican. Wisconsin doesn't really have anything competitive as well. I'd actually rate Ron Conseat as safe Democrat. He's a good candidate, even though the district is trending red. And then finally, Wyoming with just the 1 at-large district. So looking at the overall map, we do see the Democrats are at 236 seats. Republicans are at 199 seats. So this would be a net gain of 1 from the last elections in 2018, and it would be effectively, probably a net gain of 3 to 4 in terms of what they have now, because they have 236 instead of 232. Republicans have 199 instead of 197. But the overall gist of it is that Republicans wasted opportunities in a lot of districts they could have won in. Districts like South Carolina's 1st district, districts like Maine's 2nd district, and New York's 19th. New Mexico second. So there's a lot of districts, a lot of places where they failed in, and they are going to take consequences for it. They are going to lose a lot of seats, and I do think Democrats will have a good result in the House. I'll have 2 more House predictions coming up before the election, and then I'll have my final prediction just a couple days before the election. So thank you all for watching this video. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also join the Discord that is linked down in the description, and check out the website, which is also linked down in the description. So again, guys, thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you guys later.